Let's discuss AI not from a lens of disruption, but instead from a perspective of discernment. Now, for all of my business leaders in a high-touch luxury brand, or in any brand of that matter, you've certainly been hearing about and considering the ways in which artificial intelligence might be changing your creative processes, your operational processes, and figuring out how this can increase efficiency, but then thinking about how you can get those efficiency benefits without changing the sophistication and the personalization and that human touch, that poetic nature of your business. Let's break this down. I've been doing a lot of thinking about artificial intelligence and AI in the luxury market, and I would love to share and start the conversation on how we can find this balance. There is a bit of a discrepancy here. AI thrives on speed and scale and standardization, while the luxury market works on nuance, scarcity, and intimacy. So how can these two things coexist, and can the luxury market benefit from artificial intelligence in a smart way? The risk here is over-automation or sounding algorithmic can deconstruct the special aura that is the power of your brand. So while AI bots can improve operational efficiency, luxury buyers have been proven to still value that personalization and that human touch, especially in the latter part, the end part of their buyer journey. The best way to use artificial intelligence is to reduce friction in your buying process, not to remove that personalization. So a great way of leveraging some of these technologies might be for data analysis, for example. So you could take large plots of customer sentiment, and this is something that we've already been doing with artificial intelligence even before this rise of generative AI, is taking large swaths of data and breaking it down and analyzing it. But now with generative AI, we can get the insights spoken back to us in a more human and understandable way. So you can take pages and pages and pages of Instagram comments or Reddit threads or YouTube comments or even transcripts from YouTube videos and TikTok videos about your brand, and you can plug those transcripts into a tool like ChatGPT or Claude and get it to summarize what the customer sentiments are and start to help you to strategize what the next steps and responses could be to either leverage some of the things that people are enjoying about your company or work on improving areas that there might be some friction in the buying process. This is a really good use of artificial intelligence, as the only other way to do an action like this in the past would have probably been by an individual or a team combing through these comments and synthesizing the information themselves. So this checks something off of the list and is a great way to be able to then use a human perspective to personalize the experience for your buyers and create more positive touch points with your brand. Artificial intelligence could also be very helpful for copywriting. Now, I think that there would need to be a lot of training on this, using something like ChatGPT and first plugging in quite a few words, like I'm thinking 1,000 or more words of your brand writing that was already done by a professional copywriter, some of the best exemplary examples that really resonated with your audience, and then getting it to replicate that voice. You can also plug in different customer segments, different psychographic profiles, and get the artificial intelligence to write the same piece of copy but targeting different groups. Now that brings down the amount of time that you're spending on that task without completely removing the human touch from it. And a tip and a strategy that I often use when I leverage AI is not only by feeding the content in upfront to get it to duplicate my voice and my human touch, but also after you iterate on anything that it spits back out at you, instead of just posting it and then proceeding on with your business, actually feeding back that copy edited language back into AI and asking it to analyze and saying, hey, notice the changes that I've made. What have I adjusted about this copywriting, and can you use that to inform next time I ask you to write something for me? This has been a really good strategy for me, as the artificial intelligence has been able to go through and say, hey, I've noticed that you've made it feel a little bit organic and conversational here, or you've elevated the language a little bit, or whatever nuances that I've used for that piece of copy. And then truly the next time that I ask AI to write something for me or create something for me, it's just that much better. And after doing this again and again and again, it's been more frequent that I've been able to use language out of artificial intelligence that I haven't had to do a ton of editing after the fact. And so that can allow you to maintain that high level of personal touch while still capitalizing on the efficiency that AI brings and that is going to now be expected of the market now that this tool and this technology is available to us. Another benefit that I felt to be handy is creative prototyping. Now, design is one of those things where I feel like AI still needs a lot of work. There's some really great image generation tools that are happening right now, but when it comes to anything that's like a flat graphic, I think that we still have a long ways to go. But especially when it comes to photo shoots or video shoots or stills or even high level graphic concepts, we can leverage tools like Midjourney. I personally love Google's Image FX platform, Sora. There's so many image generation tools that we can use to just flesh out high level concepts before we have our creative team go ahead and execute on them. So if you're thinking, what would it look like to have a lipstick frozen in a tube of ice, kind of melting in this way, you could plug that into something like Google Image Effects and just see a high level of how things could go, which could help to picture things that are floating around in your mind and sharpen your creative direction. And I see it as no different from sourcing inspiration imagery from magazines or previous ad campaigns or Pinterest, Instagram, whatever platforms you use. It's the exact same thing where you take the inspiration images as a base level, but then innovate on it yourself and improve on it yourself within your creative teams. So it's a great place to start. So now that we've talked about some of the opportunities, let's focus in on where we should be cautious. My first word of caution would be don't outsource your taste. This piggybacks well off of my last point of using any image generation tools or any content writing as a springboard for your own personalization. And I think that this is absolutely just as much an opportunity as it is a word of caution. If you're using artificial intelligence to entirely design your visual identity, for example, a website without any edits from there, there's some great tools now that you could just plug in a prompt and just ask artificial intelligence to do a logo in a website and even produce all the imagery on that website. As convenient as that may be, what you're going to get out from it is not going to feel original. It's probably not going to feel high touch, and it's going to most likely have that uncanny feeling or that low quality feeling, which just isn't acceptable for a luxury brand when you're commanding or attempting to command a higher price point. Another thing to be cautious of is faking personalization. While artificial intelligence could be great to reduce friction in the buying process, there's always going to need to be that human discernment, as there's so many unspoken things and body language cues and other elements that only a human eye can see, as we are right now, that's still going to need you to be involved or for somebody on your team to be involved. And so I keep thinking about friction. So if there's a lag in your buying process, then automate it. If there's something that is just taking far too long that you're doing over and over and over again, then train AI on that and then get it to be able to smooth out that process. But when it comes to a warm thank you note after somebody buys, or customer service, or some of these other high touch moments that are so essential in the buying journey, where we find that conversions or retention is greatly impacted, that would be a great place to make sure that you're injecting human life and ensuring that even if you're leveraging artificial intelligence, that there's still a human eye on that. So for example, if you're automating a thank you note after every single purchase, and you're using AI maybe to personalize that thank you note with the person's name and the person's purchase. It may be a fun thing that might be relevant for it. Like if somebody was to buy a beautiful ski suit from your brand and you're able to use AI to personalize the thank you note to be like, enjoy the slope. If then that person responds to that email and they have a question or something about the brand, there should still be a human being monitoring that inbox to make sure that we're not letting that experience slip through the cracks and we're not completely losing that human touch. My final word of caution would be don't default to speed. Yes, AI can generate 100 taglines or 100 captions in 3 seconds for you, but the quality might just not be there, and it might not be the level that people have come to expect from prestige brands. Luxury by nature requires restraint, it requires refinement, and it requires time. So speediness is not always what we want to go for, and we need to remember to have that same level of restraint and discernment that inspired us to step into this market in the first place. The best way I see it to use AI is like an assistant. The same way as if you were to hire a personal assistant who's new to your brand and new to your company, you would have to resource them with the correct tools and monitor their output quite a bit until things have gotten to a point where you trust them to put things out there that are customer facing is the exact same way that you should be treating these machines. AI is not a replacement for forming your brand story or your voice, but it is a very useful tool to be able to spot patterns, manage large amounts of data, and save you a little bit of time on actions that you're doing over and over again. At its best, it can be a thought partner. I'm sure that by this time, most of us have had the experience of conversing back and forth with ChatGPT or Gemini when we're thinking through ideas. And that back and forth is where the real value happens, not just prompting in one sentence and then having blind trust to anything that is spit back out at us. Instead, refining and discerning and using this as a sounding board to be able to sharpen and clarify your human thoughts and ideas, I think is the most productive way of using artificial intelligence for a luxury position business. My name is Tosin, and I am the founding principal of Atelier Oluwatosin. We are a 360-degree creative consultancy that turns bold visions into inevitabilities through digital and spatial design. I would love for you to join our community by subscribing, engaging in the comments below, or sending me a private message in my email inbox. Let's partner in making the world a bit more beautiful together. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.